Hey guys, what's up? Happy New Year. Alright. It's Double Deuce back. I know I was kind of in hiatus, through the holidays here because I've been dealing with this right here. And I've been trying to figure out a few things. And I figured out a lot of things that hopefully will help you guys with the new Otto engine. And I'm going to list them all from what I found out tonight on the video. Right now it's I think January 2nd. It's like, wow, it's like time flies when you're having fun, or in pain. Like I say, I spent more time with this than I probably should have, but the reason I did that was to help you guys out with your upcoming problems you can avoid just by watching the video here. It's not been fun, but I learned something, and if I can learn something and pass it off to you guys, that means everything in the world to me. So hope you guys enjoy the video. You'll probably see a little segment of my super rare L89 aluminum headed 396 convertible Camaro that I've owned for a long time, and you'll see how I bought the car. And just by being cheap, you know what I mean, by saving $1, sometimes you can really screw up your whole life. So anyways guys, here we go. So you're gonna see this mess of a pile of parts on the table here tonight, okay? It was a long day for me. I had to go out and put all the patch panels on my Chuck V military Blazer, because you got to pay it forward. If it's good enough for those guys, it's good enough for me. And so why I did that, I was thinking about this through the whole time, because just patching panels and changing fuel lines, all that stuff comes natural to me. I do it every year because I live in New England. That's what we do. We change brake lines, fuel lines, belts, hoses, and because the winters they can be a little brutal up here. So I got thinking about when I went to start my Blazer, I noticed the starter was groaning a little bit, and I thought, that's weird. So anyways, long story short, I checked the batteries, and one of the batteries had died because it's got twin 12-volt batteries. It's a 24 volt system, and the starter in the thing is 24 volts. So when it was like straining to start, you could hear the thing like kicking back and kicking back. And it reminded me of this right here. When I hooked up this whole system here, which you'll see my last video there about the reverse polarity and all the stuff I went through since Thanksgiving, I hooked it up to a 7.4 volt battery, which is, this one's a little big because I like to use the little ones. And you'll see here, I do have a 3-cell 11.1 volt battery for the starter. So here's what I learned today, or actually last night and the day before Thanksgiving, or from to New Year's. I've been trying to figure out why this thing will start easy one day and not, easy the next day. So what it was it's the engine needs your starter motor to start it, okay, which I'll pull these off now because I want you guys to see the starter again. This is a brush starter motor. This comes on your Toy and V8s, your L400s. It's a big, huge, this motor right here is the ones I think that they use in the airsoft rifles, okay? But however, the RPM of this electric motor is not enough on 7.4 volts, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick this thing over on 3 cells, okay? 11.1 volts. This is off my Sisson FSL engine, the 4-cylinder flathead. You see the relay totally shorted out, so I ripped the cover off so I could just touch it. So I want you to listen to this here. And when you get to see When that thing turns over that fast, the fuel instantly gets sucked out of the tank right to that carburetor, to that fuel pump. Okay? Now, I'm going to hook this thing up back to the 7.4 volt. All right? And I want you to hear the drama. This is what I've been going through, because I thought to myself, you know, like, why? I mean, why ain't it starting? You know, like, I mean, it just needs, like, a little glow plug action, a little nitro, you know. So I went through three starter belts, because I buy these things by, you know, 4 or 5 at a time. So now I've got this stuff hooked up to my radio. I'll turn my radio on. I'll turn my car on. Now you see it's got steering action. It's got throttle action. Now listen to it when it starts. This thing does not want to hear it. Oh, my lead fell off here. It is so weak, you know, it just sounds horrible. There's no way that engine is going to start when it's going through that. All it's doing is straining. It's burning the motor out, okay? It's stripping the belt. When it does go to fire, it strips the belt. That's why I went through 3 belts today. So, like I said before, this is a 7.4 volt speed controller. If you can get an 11.1 brushed speed controller that does not have reverse polarity coming out of here from my last video there, because I found that out the hard way, guys, you know. And now when I hook this up to 11.1 volts, this thing fires up every single time, and which is cool, because that's what we don't need. Frustration in our hobby, you know what I mean? We don't need drama. And so this has taken me like 3 days to figure this out. And like I said before, I'm going to show you a video of how I bought my Camaro, okay? And when you watch the video, you're going to be stunned over $1 difference in your life, all right? So here's the video. All right, so now I'll tell you guys how I bought this car. Okay, you see it's a real RPO L89 SSRS Camaro that was owned by GM itself. Now you'll see it still has the original 375 horse 396 in it, which I drive regularly. Don't mind the mouse turd there. You'll see what it say right there, 375 horse. So how I bought this car was the guy replaced the fuel line on it and the starter, and he couldn't get it to turn over, and it kept kicking back and had all kinds of problems. So I bought the car knowing, because I've been through this before with many of these cars, that when you replace the starter in these, you have to get the high torque starter, which turns the engine over faster, because it has 11-to-1 compression ratio. It has a solid lifter camshaft. It has this massive Holly on there. So it needs to spin at least a third times faster than the normal 307 or 305 engine that we have today. So this is how I bought the car, all because of just a lack of judgment. The starter was $1 more, $1. And this guy had this car, and back in 1982, I searched for this car forever, never knowing that I would find out, because of a bad decision on not spending $1 more for the high torque starter, I would own it. And I've had it for many, many years. 1982 is when I bought this car. Yep. So this is where I'm going today. We're going to learn a lot of stuff. That Chevelle has the same starter as this car. That Blazer over there, that Chuck V military Blazer, has a bigger starter than these two cars because that was a diesel and I converted it to gasoline. So now when I crank that thing over in the morning, it can be 9 below zero and it'll fire up like no tomorrow without a problem. So this is where I'm going, guys. Like I say, sometimes we make bad decisions because we hear bad information. And I always try to bring up, current, new, tested technology to you guys. So anyways, guys, get back to the project. And we're back. So you see how I bought that car because the guy did not want to buy the high torque starter, which was $1 more back then. I mean, yeah, $1 back in the 70s was like, $10 now. You know what I mean? But the reason that he gave up on the car was because he was cheap. So I'm not cheap about my builds. I'm not. I spend more money on my builds than I probably should have. And the reason I do it is so you guys don't have to spend your hard-earned dollars. I mean, a hobby is something that is a luxury in this world. It's not something that's a mandatory thing like food, gas, electricity, and car insurance, But, it is what it is. So the reason I do my videos is because to help you guys, and, it is what it is, man. I have no other purpose in life right now. I really don't. I mean, I could do all kinds of other things, but I feel the need to bring transparency to the table to help you guys out. So, like I say, get yourself a 3-cell brushed starter ESC. Use your voltage checker there, your multimeter, to make sure black is black and red is red when you hook it up to your radio. Because the reason I got this tape on here, like I said before, was if I pull it backwards, okay, it reverses the polarity and that other speed controller that I bought. And like I say, these step-down bucks here that run our glow plugs, they don't have reverse voltage capabilities. So, long story short, now I have to go out and find a brushed speed controller that is a 3-cell, that when you click your I set it up on this 3-position switch here, okay? Now, the RC 4-wheel drive one, when I click that forward like that, that is a 320 amp right to the starter motor and the glow plugs, okay? Now, you can start these on 60 amp if you can get a 3-cell 60 amp speed controller, okay? I started off with those because that's the only thing that Sterling Kit had to offer back then. So when you pull this to the other direction here, okay, on that cheap speed controller that I bought, it is now, red is positive and black is negative, but it's only 120 amps. So I'm learning here, and I'm trying to pass off the information. I hope I didn't mislead anybody with the 60 amp speed controller. The 320 amp 3-cell works like that. This thing starts in a heartbeat, and it doesn't eat up your starter belts, because these starter belts are really super hard to get. I mean, I've tried many times to buy a belt online. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks for them to come because they have to custom make them. And the problem is you have to order your belt by the tooth size, the millimeter size, and the thickness and width of the belt. So when I got my Conley supercharger over there, right there, right, I blew out the supercharger belt in the thing. The thing came loose and just smoked the belt. And so it took me 6 different buys online to try to find that original belt. I couldn't get the ones from the manufacturer that made the engine because they were out of stock. So, so it took me, I needed one now, and all these belts came, they're all different thicknesses, and like the teeth inside the belts here, these are all the belts that I burned through today. All right. Now, another thing on this engine, now these are only a 2mm tooth belt. 2mm, that's it. So when this thing kicks back, when it's trying to start, it just shreds these teeth off of it because the pinion on the starter motor itself is too small to turn over the big one-way bearing here. So when it kicks back, it just slides right over top of this because the bracket flexes on here. So, and another thing I wanted to touch base on is when these engines come out, they are the Toyin, L200s is all they are, and when people started getting the wrong starter belts, okay, when I got mine, it was one of the first engines out there. The starter belt is an 88 MXL, okay, and all these other people were getting the 86 MSLs, okay. So when you get an 86 MXL, that was because the original L200 was a brushless motor, not a brush motor. So that's why there's a difference in the belts. Because it's the same engine, it's just a different version with the starter. So if you have a brush motor on your Otto, or if you change it over on your FSL Toyin 200s, you need the 88 MXL belt. If you have a brushless motor, which is really tiny a motor with the same pinion on here that sits differently inside this bracket here, you can use the 86. So when, because I tried using 86 on this here and it would not fit. It was just like, I'd seen the pain that you guys went through when you got your new engine in the box there and you're putting it together, and the starter motor's all jacked up against the exhaust manifold. It's just, and what's going to happen is it's going to break off this pinion right here, the shaft coming out of the motor right here. It's going to break that right off because I've done it before. You cannot put a smaller belt on here and expect this thing to turn over without the strain on this shaft here breaking off at the bearing. And because I bought several of these starter motors, and I've had two of them, break the shafts off because the belt was too tight. And my thoughts on this would be, what if we put a bigger cog on the starter belt? If we look at the Engine-More V8, the timing belt on that thing was very impressive. Those teeth worked because they were huge, they were big. And if they could do, all these are here, these are printer belts from a 3D printer. All these pinions and stuff, 2mm, they're all 3D printers. So 3D printers only ride back and forth, and they just move, and there's no strain on those things. They just freedom to move. Where when you have a 2mm belt on a starter motor like this here, now you've got problems. So if I'm wrong, correct me. But this is what I'm seeing right now. The Toyin V8 has like a starter pinion gear on here that goes to the starter one-way bearing, which is cool. However, these engines don't have the room, I don't think, to put that on here because the pinion gear would be way too big to fit. It would be way bigger than the engine block itself. So, anyways, guys, that's my thoughts on that. The carburetor settings on this thing depends on what battery you're using to start it. Because I thought that I bought the wrong fuel, and it was like I went through hell trying to figure this out. Excuse me, a little cold in here, and I got a little nasal congestion going on there. But now I can set the carburetor, start it with a 3-cell, boom, it starts right now, and it stays running, and I don't have to readjust it after I get it started. With the smaller voltage battery, the 7.4 volt, you got to lean this thing out so bad so it don't kick back and smoke the belt, you know. So then you're constantly readjusting things. So anyways, guys, like, share, subscribe if you want. Love to all. Happy New Year, and I'll catch you later. Adios.